now listening to Philly Sports Pulse with Jesse Sharon and Adam Den, powered by 302 Birds. Let's take it to the show.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome into Philly Sports Pulse. I'm Jesse, joined by Adam Den. As always, busy week in the Philly sports world. We did an emergency LeBron Sixers pod when he signed the night of, so he is still a Sixer. KCP, his contract is also. Is it official? I think it's official.
I don't think KCP's official yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we brought in KCP.
Clear waivers, I believe.
Yeah. Well, we brought in KCP. That happened. JALEN CARTER extended 4 years, the most. He's the highest paid DT
period
in ever. It is wild stuff. Training camp is underway, so we'll give our insight and analysis on the first few days of training camp, and the Phillies deadline is right around the corner. I believe it is Monday, so we will give our expectations in all of that. The last few days for the Phillies has been brutal, to say the very least. So there's a lot the Phillies need to do, and we'll break all that down in just a little bit. But we'll start with JALEN CARTER. Adam, extended 4-year deal, can be worth up to $160 million. That is a lot of money. What do you think about this deal?
Yeah, Jess, we talked about it on the Philly Sports Pulse Instagram. Make sure you give a follow, click shout. But it's a deal that I think the Philadelphia Eagles both recognize they needed to get done and probably have some pangs about. The defensive tackle market has just exploded over the last couple of years because of the different types of athletes that we're seeing from this position, guys who really can get out and play the edge much tougher than they were previously, guys who are more explosive, much more dynamic than they were in the past. And JALEN CARTER is no different from that. He is a special talent as a pass rusher who the Eagles did end up lining out outside at some points, very rarely, but at some point, and who's also incredibly stout against the run. But I think the reason why this team is going to continue to have a bit of a headache is, as we discussed, some of the downturn that came last season after what was a great season in 2024, and whether that is a result of injuries, he had those shoulder injuries throughout the year, or just a plain lack of effort, which was seen multiple times on film. The moment this news came out, Jess, I went back and I was like, I know I'm going to produce this video, and I know there's this incredibly damning clip from this Eagles-Bears game that I remember watching and just thinking, like, what is this guy doing? So it's plays like that where, you had Kyle Monungai, I think it was, just running straight up the middle, and Drew Dahlman blocking JALEN CARTER into the ground like, he was a fly because JALEN CARTER had no desire to really get at him in any way. I think it's plays like that where he's exhausted and there's the lack of effort that he's going to need to clean up. I think, everybody does the training camp conditioning things, and I've already saw a lot yesterday of, oh my God, JALEN CARTER just signed the massive deal and he comes in and he's fat and what are we going to do? I would very much caution against that, but I think this is going to be a big year for him, and he's going to have to be productive in order to kind of prove them right, because as we're going to get into, this is a deal that kind of does tie the Eagles' hands behind their backs when it comes to a lot of the other defensive contracts that they're going to look to give out for a defense that is among the cheapest in the NFL as of right now.
Yeah, and to get into that, it comes out the other day that the Eagles are going to basically have to do the same thing as a lot of people, I think, expected with Quignon, with Coop. How do you think this kind of, affects that sort of situation? Because Coop was awesome. Obviously, in the Super Bowl year, he's been one of our better defenders. Quinyon Mitchell, Guantanamo Bay. I mean, he was outstanding last year, and all things considered, right? The addition of Grenard, although he recently got injured and is going to be out for a while. He's not going to miss any game time, hopefully. But that revamped defense. Obviously, Nolan Smith was pretty good last year. So there's a lot going into this. The contract obviously huge for Carter. So where do you think things stand with Coop and Quinyon?
Yeah, I think the reality is with Coop and Quinyon and with Jalen Carter that this is just how the Eagles do business and how they have done business in the past. So I don't really expect the plan to change for either of those two guys. Philadelphia has always prioritized getting deals done early and getting them done before the market opens. For one, so that they can kind of avoid the giant rushes that come with crazy, market changing contracts like the Justin Jefferson one last year. Or, I think it was the Mahomes contract that reset the quarterback market right after Jalen Hurts. Like deals like that are ones that the Eagles try to get to avoid. And also so that they can push the void years down the line. You look at when they did this Jalen Carter deal, and it's right before the 5th-year option. So they can, really stretch that money. I think his cap hit's going to be like $12 million this season specifically, and really continue to push and push and push, which is what Philadelphia likes to do, right? They continually restructure and extend and find ways to really circumvent the forces that be within the NFL salary cap. So I expect Quinyon and Coop to be very similar to that. They're going to get them done next year because that is a year before they need to sign their 5th-year options, and they're going to have a lot of money stretched down the line. I think when I talk about where I talked last about worrying about potential contracts down the line, it's more about the smaller guys in the fringes. And I'll let you touch on that if you want to, but if not, I certainly have a lot to say there.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah. I think it's the Moro Ojomos of the world. It's the Jalix Hunts of the world, right? Those are the guys that are going to get penny pinched in this, and those are players who are really essential to building an effective defensive line room, right? Those are rotational pieces who show great pass rush bursts, great athleticism, and I think in Smith's case are really stout against the run as well. I think that goes incredibly underrated for him. So if those are the pieces that start to wilt because they're signing these giant contracts, I think I get a little concerned, because even though the Eagles do draft really well and have for a while now, they have not really drafted very well in terms of their defensive line room in a while. We have Ty Robinson, who, we can talk about that coming into camp, but he's playing 3rd-team reps right now, and they haven't really taken anybody outside of that because they've drafted so much depth over the last couple of years. So I have my concerns long-term if they're going to let those guys go out and get top dollar on the market because of them choosing to prioritize their star level players a little more.
Yeah. Well, let's get into training camp real quick, because, the first couple of days are underway. Obviously, one of the biggest clips from that is the press conference where Jalen Hurts comes in and he's like, I slipped Jalen Carter, a $5 bill. So that was pretty funny, but there's a lot of complexities that go into the first couple days, and as a guy that I think is going to be covering it, what have you seen out of the first couple of days out of training camp?
So there were some complications. I will not be there. Sadly, yes, not great. But it happens in this business. But I think the biggest thing that, from what I have heard and read, has simply been that the Eagles are looking to have a culture shift. And I think we saw that coming after the Brown trade, right? That was, kind of the cleansing of this receiver room and of the soul almost of this offense in a way. And I think it seems from reports that has occurred schematically as well, right? You had practice open this morning from, I was reading tweets and it was Jalen Hurts taking snaps under center from Cam Jurgens, right? That in and of itself is a soul cleansing this offense. So I think it's hard to take anything away from such unstructured practices, but I think the reality is that this offense is going to look a lot different in 2026, 27, and you should be excited at the fact that this team is trying something and that it is going to be ingrained in their system.
Yeah. It was also pretty exciting. LeBron, there were a few things I think we still got to talk about it because there was news that came out, over the last couple of days. One, that LeBron James is going to be the point guard for the Sixers. Jaylen Brown is going to be the guy that mainly controls the Sixers offense. What are your expectations now that the Sixers starting five is pretty much essentially set?
Yeah, Jess, I wrote something about this, and you guys should check it out. It's on Hungry Dog Sports Blog on my Substack. But I think a lot of the Sixers' responsibility this offseason, and we talked about this on Friday as well, was making sure that Tyrese Maxey did not play the most minutes in basketball again. And I don't think he's going to do that if there's truly LeBron serving as the primary playmaker within this offense. I think it makes perfect sense with what Maxey's skill set has grown to be over the past couple of years. He is an incredible catch and shoot player. He is such a burst off the dribble. And I think the Sixers really wanted to almost groom him to be a point guard because of how they view their future. And Tyrese Maxey is probably the future point guard of the Philadelphia 76ers. If we project the Philadelphia 76ers 5 years down the line, it'll probably be Tyrese Maxey, creating and dishing it out as he did this past season. But I think he's developed enough as a player in that region of his game that he can now be allowed to return to his strengths. And LeBron James will simply add on to that. I think having him be better as a cutter, be more consistent maybe as a mid-range shooter and his ability to separate in that area of the floor, something we haven't really seen from him outside of his floater game. I think it's going to be huge for Tyrese Maxey and his ability, and huge for LeBron as well, because this is a guy who shot 31.7% from three last year. That's, I've had to memorize that number over the past couple of weeks, Jess. But he did not shoot it well, and he's going to need to be better from that range. But I think having the ball in his hands and letting him have control as pretty obviously the smartest player on the floor almost always, I think is going to be a huge boost for the Sixers offense. And then when we talk about Jaylen Brown, I think offensively you do worry a little bit at times about the fit, because he particularly has not been a great catch and shoot player over the past couple of years. But I think the best situation is if they're able to kind of stagger his minutes at times with a Maxey's and let him serve a similar role, right? Let him be kind of a point B secondary playmaker who can create off the dribble for himself and just, find his spots on the floor, similar to how Maxey is going to do with that starting five. And then maybe late in games, he's going to have to accept that it is a step back in terms of his role. But I think that offense and that style late in games is going to fit well for four of the players on the floor, and it's going to come down to Jaylen Brown to kind of adjust, and Joel Embiid as well, I guess. But I think that's kind of assumed given Joel's lesson role in recent years. So I think it's going to come together. It might be a work in progress over the first couple months because you have a lot of different personalities in that room, but I'm excited to see what it looks like.
Well, I do think for the people that are, to me, they're all like, oh, these guys are so ball, they want the ball. we've seen LeBron in this role last year with the Lakers with Luka. I think he is starting to accept this. I mean, he's 42 years old. He's 42. And with Jaylen Brown, I mean, last year he was that offense for the majority of that Celtics year. Jason Tatum obviously was out for a while because of injury, but once they did kind of get back into it, they did kind of struggle. But I will say, like, I think with the veteran experience and the playmaking ability of guys like Tyrese, and we're forgetting about, I think, VJ here. VJ is a guy that he's your fifth option. He's your fifth option, and I don't want to say almost won the Rookie of the Year, but he had a very solid year for his first year as a Sixer. I think that mix it's gonna work with the Celtics. You had Derek White, who was fine from three when he needed something, but I think the difference between some of these teams like the Sixers and Celtics, there's a step up, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends what you're looking for, Jess. That Boston team last year was such a tremendous fit together on both ends of the floor. And I think the part that we've kind of hemmed and hawed at as NBA media over the last couple days is, what is this going to look like defensively? And I wrote a whole article about it, and I think it's going to come down a lot to, I mean, the Sixers' usage of Dean Wade, who I think has, under the radar, kind of become like the most important player on this team, unironically, just because of what he brings you on that end of the floor, both on the ball and off the ball, as kind of the only plus defender on this roster that's not named VJ Edgecombe. But it's going to be a question how they kind of mold together with a 42-year-old who really not only has lacked effort at times on that end throughout the regular season, but really lacks the burst consistently to really be a key contributor there. Joel Embiid is a guy who I think is still a positive rim protector when he's on the floor, but can barely get off the ground at points last year. And Tyrese Maxey, who is a guy who is too small, even if he showed more effort. And Jaylen Brown, a guy who is propped up as a great defender, but has really struggled off the ball in recent years, especially in defenses that run a lot of mixed zone, which the Philadelphia 76ers do, just like Boston did last year, where he really struggled. So I think that's where the questions are going to lie. I agree with you offensively. I think, a lot of the too many cooks in the kitchen stuff gets a little overblown, but I think that is where Philadelphia is going to see the most problems, especially against elite offenses, and whether or not they figure out is going to be the biggest determinant on how their season goes.
Well, let's talk about another huge aspect of this thing, the bench. It's now pretty much set. KCP is a Sixer, Simon is a Sixer, Love is a Sixer. I saw these kind of outlandish rumors the other day, and I'm still seeing them today, that Drew Holiday may buy. I'm sorry, I don't buy that for a sec. You could? I'm sorry.
I could. I doubt he gets bought out now. But I think there is a reality where the Portland Trailblazers, who have the amount of guards that they have in their room, look to find a trade partner. And I think they're going to be able to find one, because Drew Holiday is a fantastic player, but it is a lot of salary. And I do believe they are going to try to find a way to move off of that deal. So we'll see how they're able to do it. I'm not totally sure how the hard cap works, whether or not how far the Philadelphia 76ers would be able to go second apron wise to be able to acquire something like that. Because I don't necessarily believe they would cut him again because of his value, but I do absolutely think he's a player that could potentially be available. But I will add,
aren't they only like 1.38 million below the first apron though?
below the first. Below the first. The second is where all the bad stuff happens, though. There's not a single team that is in the second apron right now, and there are good reasons for that. There are serious tax consequences that come with it. You can't really sign anybody on the buyout market. You can't really make any trades. It kind of kills everything you want to do. But Drew Holiday is a very good player, so would not surprise me. Also, and we'll talk about it, maybe not as much of a need with what they've worked to acquire.
Yeah. How about Nick Richards? He's a guy that's been rumored for the Sixers. He's a big man, and I feel like the Sixers need that. In that on that bench, is he a guy that you could see being a positive impact for the Sixers?
Nick Richards last season was a player who I think was touted as kind of a young guy who can be a key contributor and did not really deliver to that extent. I think he's kind of Dom Barlow-ish in the ways that he struggles defensively. He's certainly another body at the center position, and I think they certainly, if they're going to add, I think it needs to be in the front court. That's where I view the biggest weakness to be. With the talent that's available, I would just wait. Honestly, I think there are going to be a couple buyout candidates, and I would rather have one of those guys and just try to roll with the Adembona, maybe LeBron at the 5, early stuff in the season, than try to force something like a Nick Richards, who is a player who I think, while athletically talented and a good finisher around the rim and in the pick and roll, is really limited in the place where the Philadelphia 76ers struggle most.
Well, do you think they're going to roll with in that center position? Because I agree, the center position to me is a potential weakness for this team. Obviously, Joel lines that at the top. We know his injury concerns. You're going to need a guy to back him up. Porty is a guy that, how do I put this, has promise, but I don't know if he's going to deliver.
He has 6 fouls. He's going to use them.
Yeah. I don't know. He's not a wow move to me, and Bona isn't. I mean, we know what Bona is. He's, a guy that doesn't exactly make the flashy plays on offense. Defensively, he's fine, but I don't know. I just that is an area to me that is concerning.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it should be emphasized that the Philadelphia 76ers cannot sign anybody right now. They would have to do a lot of maneuvering with their two-way stuff and all that to be able to sign anybody at the moment. I think they can't sign anybody till December, and that's when the buyout market is at its best, right? That's when you can kind of work around and find players at teams that are really struggling or like, oh man, we're really paying this guy $15 million a year. We got to get rid of this contract. So I think that's where Philadelphia is going to thrive, if I'm going to be honest. And there are a couple names. I mean, if you're looking at the Milwaukee Bucks, I think there's some guys in that room that could certainly be candidates. I think about maybe even like a Kyle Kuzma could be a buyout candidate. If you're looking to Los Angeles, there's like a Brook Lopez scenario. He's getting on the older side. Is that a guy who they look to get out of their room? Just off the top of my head, 2 guys that could be, but I think that's where the best market is going to land. And guys like that are, I think, much preferable to a guy like Nick Richards, who's out there right now.
Yeah. Now, in terms of KCP, obviously he won that championship with LeBron in 2020, so there's that. But shooting's kind of come off the cliff. But defensively, and this is kind of where the Sixers, projection-wise, sort of struggle. You have VJ, you have maybe LeBron at his age, maybe a Jaylen Brown. Again, I think the Sixers have defensive questions, right? And to me, KCP is a guy that he's he's a positive to me on the defensive front. So is that something that you could see Nick Nurse dealing like him putting him in later in games when it's like tight? Because I think a lot of these are going to be tighter games. They're going to be exciting. They're going to be high scoring, tight games. And is this a guy that you look at to come in the last couple minutes of the game and lock it down on defense?
I think there's been a notion specifically around the Philadelphia market that KCP is a different player than he currently is at the moment, right? Athletically, he just really isn't the guy that he was 2 years ago, especially defensively. So I think while this does give you upside at that position, and I think, that perimeter defense, which really killed them a year ago, especially with the presence of Joel Embiid and teams just looking to hunt for him and find mismatches on the perimeter with him. I think KCP will help with that coming off the bench at times, but I would be really stunned if he was closing games, just because last year in Memphis, he was a real negative on offense, like shot the ball awfully and is really going to have to turn that around. And then on top of that was probably for the first time in his career a legitimate negative on defense as well. So I expect that to rebound a little bit just because that was a very difficult situation. Down the stretch of the year, that's a team that's trying to lose. And then earlier in the year, that's a team that's dealing with a ton of injuries and putting way too much load on that guy. But it was rather concerning for the trajectory of KCP's career. I will say that.
Yeah. I will say before we get into the Phillies here, I'm an idiot and forgot to make this graphic. You and me had one hell of a time at St. Joe's University just a few days ago. We talked to Freddie Mitchell, Irving Fryer, and Tommy Green, like a guy who literally thrown a no-hitter. We got to talk to him, and we saw him like first. Like at like that dude, you cannot.
He wasn't too hard to spot.
No, he is a very tall individual. Could not be nicer. I really enjoyed Irving as well. The stories he gave us was awesome. Obviously, Freddie Mitchell, like one of the best Eagles, receivers of all time. Not all time, but he's very up there. Got to talk to him about 4th and 26. Got to talk to him about his thoughts on LeBron, which was really fun. Got to talk to Tommy Green about his thoughts on the Phillies. So, man, that was a fun time, and I could not have, wanted. I wouldn't have wanted to do it with anybody other than you, man. So, what was your takeaways? What was your experience like?
Yeah, it was a great experience, Jess, and I'm, like I said, really glad that we were able to do it together. Just being able to talk to some great athletes from the past and get them to kind of share stories both on, their time in this city and what the current Philly landscape looks like. So it's always an exciting thing, and be sure to be following along on the Instagram because we're trying to get some more clips out to you guys and get their insights out as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Something that is not particularly fun lately, the Philadelphia Phillies. You know I was going there. God, just talk to me real quick. Yeah, talk to me real quick before we get into this deadline stuff about that series with the Marlins. That was an utter and complete disgrace. And I feel, in my opinion, less confident in the Phillies than I did in a long time.
Yeah, Jess, so it was a noon game yesterday, right? So I worked till about 1:30, and when I'm writing, when I'm doing stuff, even now that I'm past my internship, if I'm writing for other people, I don't like to have the TV on or be watching stuff. I like to be focused, right? So I saw it was 6-0. I was like, hey, we're gonna let it slide. We're gonna give it a bit. And I got done, and it was 6-4, and I said, you know what? I'm going to turn this on, and I know exactly what's going to happen, and I'm just going to accept it and this is what misery feels like, and that's exactly what I experienced. It is pure misery. This is a bad baseball team. They are not a good baseball team. They have really no business expecting that they're going to be a good baseball team. I know that says deadline expectations. My expectation is that they will attempt to get slightly better and not go anywhere in the wake of it. I just do not really believe in any of the pieces involved in this from top to bottom, besides Christopher Sanchez and Zach Wheeler, and maybe Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper on certain nights. And it is not a fun time. And I'm very happy that we have gotten this media cycle to talk about the Eagles and the Sixers and distract ourselves from, like I said, misery.
See, that's why I did this literally dead last. Yep. But I mean, I'll tell you what, man. I do a majority of these Phillies post-game shows here on the network, and we had a time yesterday. We had a time. I can't believe I even still have my voice today after that experience, because you saw this coming, right? You put in Seth Johnson, who to me shouldn't be touching a major league mound ever again, or should have in the first place. You pull Luzardo way late on a day where you knew he didn't have his stuff. And then the guy that you should have, in my opinion, put in, blows it in the 8th inning. A guy that hasn't pitched since Monday. It's a disgrace. And they lost in different ways each day, seemingly. First day, you blew a save with Johan Duran, a guy that has been fantastic this year. Zach Wheeler has one of his worst starts, left up 2 home runs and 5 earned runs, I want to say.
Yeah.
Which is not something that I expected. But you go into game 2, right? Nola actually has a semi-productive outing. Your offense does nothing. Game 3, your offense shows up. But then, and this is the theme that I've seemingly noticed over the last few years, when they get punched in the mouth, when they're facing any sort of adversity, they shrivel up and die. The trade deadline, it's a marker of the Phillies' season. It's a marker of every game, and it's an indicator of where you are and if you're going to rise to the occasion. The Phillies, around the trade deadline, never seem to do that. The Phillies always seem to add to the margins, and then the playoffs come around. Again, the lights are the brightest they've ever been, and they don't meet those expectations. They don't meet the moment. And, and I was talking about this yesterday with one of my co-hosts, Billy, not Friday, Billy. Friday was actually busy yesterday, but I was talking about I was ranking my GMs, right, from worst to first. Dave, man, he's dead last. He's dead last, and he hasn't shown me a true World Series contender in a long time. But I will say this year in particular, if I'm Dave, and from what I've seen, right, obviously you having to fire Rob Thompson early part of the year, Mattingly comes in a actually pretty easy portion of the schedule, and you're all on board, and then you play real teams like the Yankees, like the Dodgers, and you've seen, what real teams do to the Phillies. It's, spoiler alert, not pretty. I just, if I'm Dombrowski, right, what is pointing me in the direction of being like, all right, this team has it. I gotta give them some support. I gotta invest This is worth my investment. This is worth my time. This is not, to me, this is not worth it, which is a shame, because this year, 2026, going into the year, people really said World Series or bust. They did, because 27, you're going to have a lockout. Bryce Harper, and we'll get into this for just a minute. Bryce Harper even said, right? He goes out and says, yeah, we need some help. And then Don comes in and he's like, he's crashing his $300 million. Man, there's it's a disaster, man. Like the PR is a disaster. The team is a disaster. And like, again, if you're Dombrowski, to me, this team isn't worth investing in. I just don't think it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement. I thought before the season that was the case, to be honest. But I think more and more on a nightly basis, especially the bottom of this lineup have proven to you what they are, and to put more focus on trying to build around them is simply being just as blind as you were to begin the season. So I don't think there's anything this team could do that doesn't involve trading one or more of those players, like them not being on this team, that will make me excited. That's Alec Bohm. That's even my guy Bryson Stott. If you got to shift around JT Realmuto, like those are players that at the bottom of this lineup that I just can't really have any trust or any faith in, and that even if they go out and they get a Taylor Ward, that's not going to change that for me. And the same goes to the starting pitching, right? I mean, this is a team that can't even field a fifth starter. We're going into this Orioles game on Friday, and I had friends who were like, "Oh my God, we got to go. It's Phillies Orioles. The Phillies, only play the Orioles every couple years at what's it called? Orioles Stadium. You got me.
Camden Yards.
Camden Yards. I only play them every couple of years at Camden Yards. I've never been. Like, let's go. Let's go Friday. I wonder why they're really cheap. They're really cheap because the Phillies can't field a fifth starter. Like, we have no idea who's pitching tomorrow. Tomorrow, Jess. The game is tomorrow. So it's insane to me that after all the investment, it's a $300 million team, and we don't even know who's pitching tomorrow. Like, I'm stunned by that fact. And the bullpen, is consistent. One of the things you said there really stood out to me in terms of all this inconsistency. And that's, you pointed out the Wheeler home runs, right? And you said that's not characteristic of him. Things are going to happen in baseball that are not characteristic, right? This is not a game of, a straight bar. Guys are going to have bad nights. Chris Sanchez had a rough night the night before. You know what I mean? Like, things are going to happen for superstar players that don't exactly go your way. That is the nature of this game. That's, we all grew up reading Moneyball. That's how this works. But when there is no margin of error for when those things go wrong, that shows you the team that you have and the quality of that team, right? The reason they lost is not because Zach Wheeler had a rough night. The reason they lost is because everything supporting Zach Wheeler was unable to handle that. That's the reason they lost. I went to the Dodgers game 2 weeks ago. I think Shohei Ohtani went 0 for 4 that night. You know what I mean? I forget who was on the mound. It was Robleski. It was Robleski. Yes. Yep, it was Robleski. And Robleski had a fantastic night. Robleski, the offense wasn't there, the supercharged offense, but they got something out of a starting pitcher that they wouldn't necessarily have. Somebody stepped up to the plate, and nobody is there to step up to the plate, and that's kind of a sad reality.
Like, and there's two other aspects. Well, let's touch on teams like the Dodgers and Yankees here. Like, obviously, there's a talent difference here, but there's a mental difference. There is a baseball IQ difference here. Multiple times. There was base running mistakes for the Phillies in that series. Base running mistakes in the NLES. There's been bad swing decisions. There's been bad challenges. Like the fundamentals for the Phillies, it's not there. It's just not there. And the fielding. You mentioned you were talking about fielding, and I'm literally now talking about fielding.
Yeah.
Trey Turner at short, he has been abysmal. Like, and you're not gonna win. You're not going to win on nights when your team can't play as a cohesive unit and doesn't have the pieces to get it done. You talk about that fifth starter spot, right? To me, and obviously this is not the biggest reason that the fifth starter, the bullpen problem is as big as it is, but like those fifth starters, right? Nola, Rangel, whoever else, Painter. When your starting pitching doesn't go deep into ball games, what does that mean? Your bullpen needs to come in. That's more innings on your arm, and we could talk about all day how you're a reliever, you're not throwing that many innings. Well, if that problem starts early in the year where you're going into these ball games in the fourth, fifth inning early on, and it continues, and it doesn't stop, your bullpen is going to get worn down. Your bullpen is going to get tired. Your bullpen is going to get hurt, like Brad Keller. No, I'm not saying that Brad Keller was outstanding for the Phillies. He was very bad. Yeah. But there's so many aspects to this thing that I don't think this deadline is going to fix.
Yeah. No, I don't either, Jess. And I mean, it's tough because you referenced this season being all in. I mean, I don't view that as anything that's changed, right? You're either tearing it down or you're all in. The middle is the worst place to be in any sport, but especially baseball. But I think the direction that this has to be either reinventing the wheel, right? And I've seen proposed trades that I would be fine with. The Zach Neto, Joe Adell thing, combined with the Blue Jays stuff where, Alec Boehm ends up not in this building anymore and Bryson Stott ends up shifting positions. Like, that's the kind of thing that I think, you're at least trying something, right? If you're going to go all in, try something. But the reality in which this team is just running everybody back at the same positions and like, hey, Brian De La Cruz is kind of fun. Let's see if that works out. You know what I mean?
Gabriel Rincones Jr.
Yeah,
Yay!
Yeah, like that is what is so troubling. Yeah, and you can't just address one position either, right?
No,
yeah, like
it's all the problem.
Yeah, like let's say you do the Taylor Ward and everybody's like, yay, Taylor Ward. It's the same as Yohan Duran at last deadline, right? Because then who's the fifth starter still? Like you might not. You're talking about postseason. You might not even make the postseason. The Pirates are 2 games out, and I'm not.
You're tied with the You're tied with the Diamondbacks, man, for a wild card spot. Diamondbacks.
Yes, the Diamondbacks, who were like 8 games behind, like weeks ago, less than weeks ago. So it's just beyond infuriating. And I think, anyone who tries to sell you that it is any less, and that includes Don Mattingly, that includes Dave Dombrowski, it is truly not just like blind, but simply wrong.
Yeah. And you talk, this is where I'm like, and literally I'm in like the 302 Birds Phillies post game chat or whatever. We have everybody in our text thread is Phillies fan, and I had so many people bring up that exact that exact trade, right? Again, this is the other thing with Dombrowski. Now that we started this in 22, 23, 24, 20, 6 years in, 4 years in, whatever. Now that you've gone in every year and traded some of these prospects away, you don't have the farm to make that all happen. You don't.
Yeah.
Your best hitting prospect is Aiden Miller, who has chronic back issues. Your best hitter, other than him, is 17 years old. 17. He's not going to be in the majors until 2031. You're seriously considering trading Gage Wood, who is going to be a star. He's going to be a star among stars, and you're forced into the. I'm spitting all over the place. You're forced into this situation because you don't have the assets to make all of this happen, and you need so many things. The bench is a problem. The pitching is a problem. The bullpen is all of your lefty bullpen arms. Forget it. They're out they're not out the window. They're just bad. Alvarado, Banks was hurt. Like it's.
Let it breathe, yes.
It is. It's a problem, and like it's a shame, right? Because you look at you can talk about Bryce Harper, Schwarber, Cassie, Trey, all these guys not getting done in the playoffs, but these regular seasons, man, they're 162 games. They've had some great games these last few years, right? This core has given us some great memories, and they're going to be remembered when this is all said and done as losers. They're going to be remembered as the guys that couldn't get it done. And that is so, as a diehard Phillies guy, as a guy, let me see if I have it. I do. This is a book. Okay, this is great. This is a book of, remember when they used to sell, literally sell, like physical tickets?
Yeah.
This is the kid that you're crushing. This kid, his first Phillies game, April of 2011. You're killing this kid. You're killing him. It is awful. It is depressing, and oh man, it is beyond any sort of imagination that I could have imagined, because you signed Bryce Harper, right, in 2019, and I was over the moon. I remember where I was. I remember who I was with.
Yeah, me too.
And this is like, oh my God, this is the start of a new beginning. And then you get JT in that same off season, and you're like, this team's gonna do it. And they haven't, year after year after year. Adam Den, the Phillies have broken me. They've broken me.
We gotta clip that with the I think that is an all-time Philly Sports Pulse moment. I think you're killing this kid is our quote of the year.
I think it is too.
Yeah.
But thank you again, everybody, for watching. Hopefully the Phillies do something,
Or not.
And
do nothing and let us ride it out. But don't do more. Don't do more and subtract.
Here's the thing, like I almost want them to do nothing, so I know, like, hey, I don't have to put my heart and soul into this team.
Yeah.
Oh, but dude, I'm gonna do that anyway. I'm insane.
Believe me,
I'm nuts. I'm nuts. That's just how it is.
You're killing this kid.
You're killing this kid, man. Oh my God, that's so great. All right, thank you all for watching. Thank you to I was gonna say TickPick, but that's a Phillies post-game stream. We are working on some sponsors though, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, thank you all for watching. I'm Jess. That's Adam. All-time episode today. So if you haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell next time we go live. But thank you, Adam, for hopping on. And let's go Sixers and Eagles. Specifically them.